I'm going to go into different segment of the question. It was designed this way. First of all, we kind of cover the current trend right now, which is, as you all know, in FinTech today, payment, just like Alipay, WeChat Pay, you know, and all the payment that is happening, or PayPal, are really changing lots of the business. A lot of the unicorn like Grab or even Tokopedia, they all are jumping to become digital bank and etc. Right? So payment is fundamental. We also have exchanges here through all these things. So payment and exchanges. So this is very fundamental. So I'd like you all to kind of quickly share, because I think there are two parts of this new technology. One is customer experience, one is security. Yeah? So for what you're doing with respect to these two areas, share a little bit. No? I mean, just highlight what you think you are doing that is like important in terms of customer experience, and what do you do to make sure it's secure. So Gabriel?
Right. So I think that we are not directly in the remittance or the cross-border payment space, although that is sort of an ancillary activity to what we do. But in terms of customer experience, I think obviously that is top priority for us, because we have a very small retail segment. Most of our customer base are institutional and corporates. So I think that they have a different expectation in terms of, you know, the kind of service that we deliver for them, right? So including ease of use, including things like regulatory compliance, and then the more related issue is, of course, the security. So I mentioned earlier that we are a licensed MES custodian. So what we do is that we allow our customers to basically park their digital assets with us, right? This includes the security tokens, this includes the crypto, right? And to do that, we basically went through a fairly long process with MES. We make sure that we comply with their technology risk management requirements. On top of that, we work with AWS to make sure that you know, the cloud infrastructure of you know, which we are on also satisfy both our operational needs as well as what MES requires. And then, of course, the last thing was that we kind of work with a insurance provider, because, you know, you guys may have heard that in the digital space, you know, there's all these horror stories of being hacked and then everything is gone, right? So we provide an added layer of insurance. And then with the insurance coming in, you know, they would then impose their own so-called security, both from a tech as well as an operational perspective. So we have to meet all these requirements and basically just offer a holistic and complete so-called security system, so that the clients feel you know, at peace to kind of park their assets with us.
Okay, I just want to add a little bit to what Gabriel has mentioned, because Singapore FinTech scene has built up a very strong ecosystem. Last week it was the Singapore FinTech Festival. So Singapore right now is really slowly becoming a premier center of the world, where crypto or financial transactions are coming to Singapore. And Gabriel has a major accomplishment to get the license. I think that is unusual and is pretty accomplished. I think he will have a lot of experience to share later on, the experience of doing it. And I'm also getting a lot of requests from all those overseas audience who are online to actually come to Singapore to get licensed. I think this is where Singapore has some value-added differentiation, right? So Zen, you want to talk about your customer experience and security for what you're doing?
Okay, when you think about customer experience, I mean, we all know, I know what got me really interested in Bitcoin, besides when I was reading about it, at the time, when I first read about it, it was from the role of a landlord, because I was in real estate, and I was reading about this new cryptocurrency. I got like, what is that? And one thing that really caught my attention at that time was instant cross-border, you call it remittance, or you call it cross-border value exchange. And because at that time, we think about it, we have instant of everything, but we do not have instant global exchange, and that really got me interested in Bitcoin 8 years ago. And now, fast forward, and then we think about all the talk about all the finance metaverse and everything. Seriously, I think at this point in time, for that to happen, you know that cryptocurrency has to be part of the formula. So it has to be, if not, and that's where I think, to me, is like crypto 2.0 in a way, where suddenly all the attention will be on crypto again, just because we have to be like I call it the grease of the new finance metaverse. And that will, before that, we can talk about DeFi, the decentralized finance, which is really happening. If you look at the volume that's happening in that front, it's literally this kind of, yeah, that's right. So, I mean, we can talk more about that. But again, I think the main thing is that if you want to talk about global seamless experience, you have to talk about cryptocurrency.
So for the premise about customer experience, I think one thing that we learn in YouTube, but I think also common to many businesses is one word, and that one word to me is simplicity, especially starting a new business. So I take our story like 3-4 years ago, example. We offer a multi-currency e-wallet. Essentially, we offer an e-wallet with a card. And when we first started, we have a lot of people asking us, why are you not doing a rewards program? Why are you not doing other features? My answer and our answer to this as a company has always been, we want to be simple, easy to be understood, and we just give our users and our fans just one liner. It is that we give you the best exchange rate. We actually resisted 3 years until this year. We finally launched our rewards program because our user base has grown so much. But then, for the first many years, I think one of the key part about customer experience is really telling the users a very simple but useful use case and to build on it. And I think that's a lot of things that we do. And I think to the second question, from a security point of view, I think both Zen and Gabriel also touches upon about technology, using new technology like blockchain, or also complying with the local regulations to get a license and things like this as well. I think to add on top of it, I would piggyback on sort of like what I mentioned just now about simplicity. I think sometimes we seem to think security is a very complex issue. Indeed it is when it comes to the execution level. But then when it comes to consumer perception, there's a difference between perceived security and also an actual security. Obviously, you need to build on the actual security, which is a point that we talk about, but also the perceived security to the users. And a lot of times, it's always easier to start simple, to start basic, but at the same time telling the users, hey, say for example, for us in YouTube, your money is fully secured in a particular bank account with a certain guarantee. And if you have a dispute, if you have a a transaction that you don't recognize, we will do it for you, and we will stop there. And there's a bunch of 10 pages of terms and conditions, regulatory documents that we're open for you to look at. But the most important part is also to communicate very simple but trustworthy statement to the users.
Yeah, Kelvin, I do agree. Simplicity is one of the best customer experience. That's the reason I didn't buy back Bitcoin then, because it's too complex, because I was concerned about it, right? So now I'm going to go into an interesting subject. It's something more advanced, okay? But it's something that I haven't figured out the answer yet myself. It's about DeFi, right? The latest trend about DeFi, NFT, you guys haven't heard about this term. I've been scratching my head, reading research on this just to prepare for our panel, right? So there's always this, I just want to share this philosophy about financial services should be centralized or decentralized. Centralized means that there's a bank, clearinghouse handling everything, right? Or there's a government, the US government or Chinese government. Now there's this big trend about moving into DeFi, right? So of course, CTX, Gabriel and Zen, you guys have been doing is really on the decentralized blockchain, right? But then there's also more financial services being launched, right? I was just having a conversation with Kelvin earlier, right? So there's this philosophical debate that's going on right now, right? So I'd like to you all share a little bit about where the future is, right, for FinTech. I know that we're limited time, but go for it. Whoever wants to address this question first, maybe a bit spicy from now onwards, okay?
Okay, so when you think about decentralized finance, one thing that is key to me is the cost, okay? Because they are jumping the middleman. So when you are reducing the cost, you are increasing your yield or increasing your profit, right? So when you think of a graph, your cost is tumbling down, but one thing is, on the same side, your UX might also tumble down sometimes because it's a bit complicated for some people to do that, that's one. And also, if you somehow did the wrong thing, you might lose because there is no a centralized party to go back or to. So that's one thing. But the key thing is that when you can deal direct, you have this privilege to deal direct. At the same time, the responsibility to make sure that you know what you're doing, right? So I think that's one thing I so far when I speak to a few people, encouraging them to jump into DeFi, sometimes because if they haven't even started with Ethereum or Bitcoin wallet, it's a little bit hard. I can understand that. So I always encourage that, you know what, just download a simple Bitcoin wallet or Ethereum wallet, and then slowly from there, you know, look through how the crypto will flow from your online exchange to your own wallet, and then when you deploy into DeFi, read about it. Yeah, so I would say that start a little bit. If you're already in that space, please feel free to explore DeFi. Things are happening so fast. We used to say that 1 year in cryptocurrency is 7 years in traditional finance. I think DeFi is like double that, 14. Every month things change. Even my wallet, like, oh, you know.
The whole space is moving at such a lightning speed, it's unbelievable, right? So maybe, Kelvin, I know that you guys are still centralized at the moment, right? Share your counter perspective, right? There are pros and cons to every one of them, yeah.
Thanks. I just borrowed the mic from Zen, so I don't think I would be giving a totally opposite feel, otherwise she wouldn't pass me the mic again. But I think our genuine view is, I recall one of the conversations from the last panel, you know, I think one point that's being brought up about is we're building solutions for the customer. Whether certain technology is decentralized or not, I think it's not a key question, depending, until we know what problem we're trying to solve. So I think both FinTech and the decentralization technology by itself is a pretty broad topic, but I think I can sort of give perspective on both ends. So say, for example, the foresight of it is the blockchain and the smart contract technology resolves one of the biggest problems that, you know, even in my investment banking days has been like struggling a lot is settlement, a lot of manual instructions, how to automate certain contracts. It could be about like when you issue a bond, how do you distribute coupon payment, or very simply when you do a stock trading or bond trading or security trading. At the back end, there's a lot of like manual confirmations, and I think that generally the market believes that this is a tool, which is called smart contract, can really make this more efficient and to Zen's point, make the cost lower. So I think there's one part to it. I think there's another part to it where, say, especially take payment as example, maybe not yet being solved by the crypto/blockchain technology, say, for example, consumer protection. Say, for example, nowadays, if you accidentally, you know, like spend a certain money in a certain merchant, or if you get your credit card stolen in a certain, you know, merchants, you're not guaranteed to get a refund, but at least your bank or your financial institution will try to do that for you. You know, why they are doing this? One, customer service. Two, because of regulations, banks and financial institutions are mandated to give that consumer protection. And when it comes to, say, crypto payment, when it's blockchain payment, the beauty of decentralized sort of like processing is like what I mentioned, to make the process more efficient. But at the same time, I think the question remains to be resolved is then how do we protect consumers? I think in a space like, say, for example, MAS, you know, they spend a lot of time working through the regulations. Even in the private sector, I know many blockchain and DeFi players, they're also working towards that. So in conclusion, I don't think there needs to be an answer to say whether it has to be centralized or it has to be decentralized, but it very much depends on what needs that we're talking about and to apply the right technologies to it.
One thing about DeFi, I think is, I mean, of course, when we're talking from a Singaporean point of view, we're thinking about increasing our return on certain assets. But I think we have to be aware that DeFi opens up a window to onboard a whole group of people who wouldn't be able to make money from traditional finance. I think that part is not here yet. Soon, I think we are moving towards that part where you are onboarding people who have been traditionally excluded from traditional finance. Either they earn too little, has too little money, do not have credit, do not have an ID, you know, stuff like that. I think that is a huge portion I'm looking forward to be involved in that field because of DeFi.
Okay, good. I think both of you are in the consumer space. Maybe Gabriel will offer, he's from the institutional perspective. Maybe there's some trend that's going on. And by the way, are you guys centralized or decentralized in a sense? This is interesting. There's also a debate about whether the exchange is centralized or decentralized. It's quite complex.
We are in the centralized space. But it is also a space that we are actively looking at because I think that it's almost a natural progression, right? I mean, you look at a lot of the exchanges, of course, many of them are not licensed, but then they are sort of saying that, look, because the trend of regulation is coming and is getting stronger by the day, and then many of them basically said, you know, I am not going to come under any kind of regulation, so the next itineration for them is really to go DeFi, right? And it's really a philosophical question, right? But I think that the business rationale as well as the philosophical basis for DeFi is undeniable, right? As Zane said. But I think, however, to kind of really get there from where we are now and to make it something more mainstream, I think DeFi space needs to really meet, you know, a few of the challenges, right? And I think the topmost is really the regulatory question. You know, I was just having lunch with one of the major players in the crypto space recently, and we were just exchanging views on how DeFi is going to evolve.
Only had to be close.
Yeah, and his view is that, like what, you know, Zen is saying, it's something that is going to be here, but how do we kind of make sure that it is also applicable and something that the regulators can get comfortable with, right? So he sees players like us who are already licensed, who are already regulated, basically acting as a so-called service provider or a gatekeeper for people going to that space, right? So, and of course, the purists would argue that, oh, then it's not completely DeFi, right? Because you are still going through a service provider. So hence, you know, there is also a phase called CeFi, right? Which is like centralized finance, but it's sort of like a hybrid version, right? That you still go through a so-called service provider, which is regulated, and then you kind of then go into the DeFi space, right? So the analogy he used was like, the early days of the internet, right, in the 80s, right? So basically, you don't regulate the so-called internet protocol, but you regulate the so-called ISP or the telecom operators. So he kind of see how the DeFi space is evolving. So that's the regulatory aspect. The other aspect, which I think, if we are also honest about it, there is a underlying technological risk, right? Because DeFi is essentially a collection of software, right? You have to trust that the software works, that the bugs have been found and it has been fixed. And you know, unfortunately, I think even for some of the bigger DeFi so-called protocol, you guys may have read or heard that there's a lot of hacks, right? So this is something that I think that we in the industry needs to also deal with, you know, which is the you know, auditing the quality of the software, right? And in our case, we are exploring working with the right partners to kind of provide access to the space, but one of the consideration for us is that we have to be sure of the counterparty risk, right? Because I can't make this product available to my clients, right? And then suddenly I say, oops, sorry, your money is gone because, you know, the DeFi protocol or the yield farm that we've kind of put the money into has been hacked and it has been drained for like $100 million. And then I'm like, oh, sorry, right? Too bad, right? This is not something that we can do. So I think a very interesting space, is very also I think a bit challenging. That's something that I think all of us in the industry needs to sort of come together to sort of tackle it.
Yeah, anyway, I think on the technology trend, whether it's it from AI to cloud computing, DeFi or blockchain, as well as maybe metaverse, right? This is definitely coming. It's a question of when, right? I don't think they are neither right or wrong, because if you guys have understand about the book called Crossing the Chasm, right? There are different stages of technology adoption. So they are not wrong. But as a business owner, if there's a one takeaway, you need to talk to all of them. Because I talk to all of them and I try to learn from them, because this thing is moving so quickly, right? So I think this forum is part of this purpose, to bring awareness to you, as well as to have the relationship in the ecosystem to talk to each other. And we can collaborate to create business opportunity together, right? So that's the reason why Hashtag organized this particular summit, right? And with the partnership of Bridge Plus to offer this location to do so, right? So I think this is the purpose. I don't think we answer any of all the questions because I think it takes some time to do so, right? So I just want to, on people on site, I want to see a raise of hand. How many people have questions that I know how to manage the time, you know? Oh, if you have question, kind of raise your hand so I have a sense, right? Oh, okay. That means nothing at the moment. Please get ready with some interesting question. So now I want to get into something pragmatic, right? You guys have all the technology provider. We are all consumer or business owner. What can you help me to solve my problem so that I can grow my business cross-border, right? I'll start with Kelvin first because his business is quite clear. Huh?
Short answer, yes. But you know, like I think the broader way or the more accurate way to look at it is if the topic being how to grow a business overseas or how to grow a business cross-border, I think there are many, many different aspects to it. You know, I think one part is how do you grow your business, you know, geographically, and I think one of the key points to it is do you find the right sort of like secret sauce to success in terms of like your business to thrive locally, and how do we adapt that recipe sort of like in a global level. I think that could be one, but you know, I think we'll skip about that part. But you know, when it comes to the topic about payments and things like this, I think there are two parts to it. I think one is in terms of costs. Like what is the rate? What is if you're doing a cross-border remittance, cross-border transaction, you know, I think it will be beneficial for your business to have the best exchange rate and lowest fee when you do a transaction. The other thing is time. How fast you can settle a specific transactions through, you know, different payment network. It could be through SWIFT, it could be, which is a very traditional network. It could also be through like more advanced network like blockchain and other things as well. So I think the short answer to sort of like growing a business cross-border very much depends on what the business needs. But I do think that in a business and finance context, I think having the best exchange rate and having the fastest way to settle your transaction could very likely be one of the key success to it.
So Kevin, if I summarize for you, you're saying that if I am a business, your payment platform offer kind of one-stop shop to take care of all my payment problem? Is that?
Yes. So currently, what
Am I
we do,
right?
what we do in Utrip is more on the consumer front, but we also have a lot of like entrepreneurs using the product. But at the same time, when it comes to Q1, we're also launching a B2B product where we actually offer a business portal for users to, for our corporate users to manage currencies and exchange as well as remit the money in different places as well.
I just want to say, sometimes focusing on your current problem is a way to escape the big problem. Why you look at me?
What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean?
Let me say that again.
Okay.
Let me say that again.
Let's be very precise.
Sometimes focusing on your current problems is escaping the big problems. I've spoken to SMEs where they have problems. They're sharing with me some of the problems, either lowering costs, trying to make more money in certain sector. However, I think sometimes these problems, yes, are real problems. But when you focus on it, you actually miss the bigger problem of whether your whole entire business was going to be here or still exist in 5 years' time, or is it still relevant? You know, so obviously because I run a business as well, so sometimes I do have problems like I need to reduce costs, reduce staff costs, reduce transaction costs. Then you use some of the platform, look around. You know, Utrip is an excellent platform. I use that myself. Maybe reduce costs to the supplier. Maybe cut some of the middlemen, right? Some of these issues where you can use technology, but it's never overwhelm yourself by answering or solving this problem. You need to look at the bigger problem. Is your business still relevant? How can you transform yourself? Just imagine if Kodak has been focusing on reducing the cost of film development, which I think they did, rather than trying to see whether they are going to still relevant. I think this applies personally as well, even for myself, whether whether you are solving the problem that matters.
I have a personal question. Is it still time to buy Bitcoin?
I have a story. I always have a lot of stories. Okay, so there is this real conversation. Let me share with you
it's
this
already
conversation.
$82,000, right?
Now, let me share with you first. Because there is this conversation, real conversation between two persons on a boat. And this person said, where are you heading? So person W said, I'm heading to Singapore. And person A said, why? Why are you going to Singapore first? So person W said, I'm there to build a business. I'm going to make lots of money in Singapore. And person A said, why? everything that has been done in Singapore has been done. Everything that could be built has been built. Why are you still going there? And person W said, I am still, and I think it will be fantastic opportunity for me. This is an actual conversation between a person on the boat and Whampoa, and the year is 1917. If you were asking me now about crypto, it seems like things has been built. It seems like it has been, 1,000 or 100 times now. But I think there are just still so much opportunities still. So I don't think you should. Can you imagine you are Whampoa and you're convinced by Mr. A? Oh my gosh, right? So there are still a lot in terms of, I think especially in Singapore, where we have so much opportunity surrounding us, and I'm very excited about the younger people, and my kids as well. Yeah, so.
I do agree with you. I mean, in being in Singapore in the fintech space, 天时地利人和. It's just the right place at the right time to do it, right? Gabriel, how can we use your service?
Right. So we are sort of we see ourselves as a partner of our clients, and the clients include, like I said, institutional investors, family offices, hedge funds, asset managers, right? So the idea being that we provide them with a regulated platform, and it's a one-stop shop platform, right? So what they can do is that if they have the right kind of assets, we offer them the ability to monetize that asset, right? So that's one way to sort of help them grow their business. The other way is to then, of course, connect them with the right kind of investors and provide liquidity to their asset. And then, of course, we act as a custodian, right? So the simplest case is what, for example, what Zen said. You could just be buying Bitcoin or Ethereum, and you want to look for I suppose, a safe place to store it because you believe that it's going to hit 100,000 or $500,000 in 2 years' time, right? So you don't really want to sort of, put the Bitcoin in your own, in the thumb drive and put it underneath your bed, right? I mean, you really want to put it in a secure location, just like you put your cash now with a bank, right? You don't put it in a tin box underneath your bed. So we essentially are that platform, that infrastructure, and we give you all kinds of so-called access to do something with your money or your assets, and hopefully grow it, right? The other aspect, the last bit, is that we are also very much a green exchange in the sense that, as I said earlier, we allow our clients to basically monetize their business if there is a green angle, of course, and then basically take the carbon credits that have been generated and then to basically sell it or to trade it. Or even for the other sides, we have some clients who are looking to offset their carbon footprint. And so they come to us and they buy it and offset it. So the advantage for them is that they then get a cheaper financing from either the banks, because banks are now looking for so-called green loans or some kind of ESG compliance, right? So by working with us, they lower their cost of financing, right? And the third thing is that they would also be able to sometimes benefit from their share price. Because again, certain investors like BlackRock, right, they already have a mandatory ESG requirement, and they say that, look, if you are not satisfying our ESG requirement, I can't buy shares in you, or have to reduce my stake in your company. So that is also an indirect benefit, and these are the kind of conversation that we have with the client. So.
Okay, thank you. We're actually running out of time. I'm just curious if there's any question from the floor or online, because I didn't see any so far. So with that, actually, just quick 10-second to last statement. Anything you want to leave with the audience?
I think today we talk a lot about expanding businesses. I just want to sort of like respond to the question that James talked about, how do we, or what are our advisors, to grow your business cross-border or whatnot. I think my genuine answer, and I think I'm speaking to many entrepreneurs here, is, we are all in the process of figuring this out. I think today, the conference and this exchange is a platform for us to exchange ideas, some of the platforms that we may be able to use to charge our business, but I think fundamentally growing a business, growing your business not just locally, but also overseas, is a subject that you as an entrepreneur will know the best, and finding the recipe of what you believe in, what your consumers need, I think is the most important part. So that would be it. my takeaway from this conversation here.
Yeah, so I think that the digital trend, it's fairly undeniable now. I think that it's something that everybody, whether it's individual or the companies, needs to sort of get onto this train, right? I think the government is promoting it. I think the thing that is important is that as we sort of get into the space, you really want to work with a regulated party. You really want to be able to kind of make sure that you know, the party, whether as an individual or as a corporate or institution, you work with somebody that, you know, that can kind of talk the language with you, not just your personal needs, but also understand the regulatory framework, understand the security framework that I think James mentioned earlier.
I feel that at this point of time, because things are moving so fast, even though you are in the industry, sometimes I feel overwhelmed, and I'm sure a lot of people will. And actually, one thing that we forgot to talk about earlier is eCBDC, which you heard about Mr. Ravi Menon talking about Project Orchid, and I think that is huge for Singapore, and we have to probably go there for cross-border. That's one thing, right? And also other thing, I mean, he has probably covered everything on that speech, so please go ahead and listen to it if you haven't. I think a lot of people talk about opportunities and about us seizing it, companies aside, you are senior management or you are just starting out in the world. It's overwhelming, and we have to acknowledge that. However, for me personally, sometimes I look at my kid and I realize that I have to do what I want them to be, meaning that like a role model for them. So whatever it is, find your own motivation for really embracing the digital side. It could be being an example for your young kids so that you're not actually overwhelmed by whatever is happening. Do a little bit every day. It could be an example for your staff that you really been working on, or your entrepreneur, the staff been with you for 10 years. Or, you know, as a senior leader in whoever you are, try step by step. It's overwhelming, but we all can do it. Be a good example what you will like the younger generation. I mean, as I said, find your anchor. I think it's very hard to self-motivate, right? But do it for somebody. It could be your parents, if you're young. It could be your kids. It could be your team. Find the anchor and take the step slowly. It can be learned. I mean, I'm a trained accountant, but now I'm in technology. Everybody can do it, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Zen. Thank you, Kelvin. Thank you, Gabriel. We really run out of time. I just want to leave something quick as a last statement is that money, FinTech will drive all kinds of businesses, whether you're in healthcare or any other industry. So it is related to your domain, even though you're not in the FinTech space. I think that is very important to know. 钱能使鬼推磨. So this is a very important lab. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hashtag and Renee, for the invitation.